everything you want comes when you stop trying. On the surface, that sounds completely wrong, right? Because we've been raised in a completely different belief. Try harder, push more, grind, force it, hustle until it happens. But if you look closely at your own life, do you actually feel this is true? I mean, when I take a look at my own life, I cannot honestly say that the things I am most proud of, the things that most people admire the most about me and my life, are the things that I worked really hard for. And yeah, sure, there are things in my life that I did work for. Getting into college, for example, or getting my degree. I studied for them. They didn't just fall from the sky into my lap, right? But if I really look at my life, many other things, many of my big accomplishments, didn't exactly happen because I tried too hard. They feel more like things that happened to me rather than things that I personally accomplished. They have some element of being at the right place at the right time. And I can honestly say that some of those things, quite a few of them actually, are things that I really wanted, and I did try pretty hard for them, and they just weren't panning out. And I pretty much gave up on them. And then suddenly, in ways that I hadn't even predicted, somehow they fell into my lap. And I bet if you examine your own life, you will notice the same kind of thing happening. You will notice that many of the things that you enjoy the most, that you're the most proud of, they didn't happen because you worked hard for them, or you planned them very carefully. You strategized how to get them and worked on a specific plan to make them happen. Many of those things that you most cherish in your life right now feel like they just happened to you. Or you may have stories of giving up on something only for it to fall right in your lap in a way that felt miraculous, out of nowhere. When you had let go of it, it wasn't important anymore. And suddenly, it happened. And this isn't actually a coincidence. So I wanted to make a video to talk about this because I don't know about you, but I admit that I often trap myself in a pattern where I forget that things get to be easy. And the easier you make them, the easier they actually happen. And I trap myself in this situation where I feel I have to work hard. I have to struggle. And the more I struggle, the worse things seem to get. So I wanted to talk about this because there are very specific reasons why trying so hard doesn't get you better results. It actually gets you worse or no results at all. It isn't random. There is a method to the madness of why this happens. And once you see it, it is much easier to stop trapping yourself in this situation like I have done in the past with myself. Hello, my beautiful superheroes. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, hi. I'm Scarlet Grace, and this channel is all about helping you become the version of you who has it all. So let me ask you a question. Do you have something that you want that you started wanting very recently? And if you don't, can you pick something that you have wanted for a while now? Maybe a thing that you have wanted for a long while and you have been trying hard to get, but it always seems to be out of reach. Can you take that thing and can you mentally go back to when you first started wanting it? If you can pinpoint the exact moment in time when you first thought about this thing as something that you want, can you mentally go back to that? And there's a reason we're doing this. So if you can pick something that you just very recently, like yesterday or a week ago, you started wanting, or if you can mentally go back in time to when you first started wanting something that you have been going after for a while, can you remember what it felt like when you first started wanting it? Can you identify that feeling? That feeling of pure desire before you put conditions on it, before you try to see how it fits your life, if it's easy or difficult, just the pure desire. And the reason I'm asking this question is because if you get this sense of what it feels to want something, you will start seeing why thinking that you have to work super hard to earn it is the reason why it keeps slipping out of your fingers instead of happening. See, if you can track that feeling down, you will notice something very interesting. Desires are usually those lightweight, happy, expansive kinds of feelings and thoughts. They have nothing hard about them. It's almost like they have no hard edges. For example, you decide that you want a specific car, and you just have this feeling of, it would be so nice if I had that car, if I could drive that car to work every morning. And you have this expansive feeling of, oh yeah, I feel so light, I feel so happy thinking this. This is completely different to what we turn our desires into when we decide we have to work really hard to get them. Because the process that happens is we take something that is light and expansive, that is a desire, and we turn it into a need. Now, a want and a need may sound very similar to you, but actually your mind perceives them as two very, very different things. A want is something light and expansive. Like, oh, it would be so good if I could drive a car like that to work every morning. Expansive, happy feeling. Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if I lived in such a big house and had my own swimming pool? I never had that. That sounds cool. That sounds like something I would enjoy. And you just go into imagining swimming in your swimming pool and it feels good, right? But when you turn that into a need, it gets all those hard edges because a need to your mind means survival. What you need is the things that will allow you to keep surviving, to keep being alive. That is what your mind perceives as a need. And we don't actually have that many needs in life. We need food, we need water, we need oxygen, we need shelter, we need some sort of socialization with other people, we need sunlight. Oh, that's about it. That's what you truly need in the literal sense of the word. And when you need something, when you legitimately need something and you don't have it, you go into full survival mode. Imagine somebody grabbing you and pushing your head in a body of water like that swimming pool and not allowing you to come up to breathe. You will fight with everything you got because it is a legitimate need. If you don't get that oxygen, eventually you will die. But when you turn a desire, when you take something that you just want and you treat it like a need and you tell yourself, I need to get this no matter what. I will grind and I will hustle and I will do everything in my power. I will give it everything I got because I need this to happen. I need this to go right. You give your brain the message, we need this, like we need oxygen. Our survival depends on it. So what happens? You go into survival mode. You desperately grasp for that thing the way you would grasp for air if I were trying to push you down into that swimming pool, not allowing you to breathe. And suddenly, that light, happy feeling that you had around this desire, around wanting this thing, is all gone. And it's all replaced with those hard edges that are so difficult to navigate. Because it's a need. Now you need it for survival. Your whole system believes that if you fail to get it, it means death. Do you hear how bad that sounds to your mind? You took something that was playful and lightweight, like playing a fun game of basketball with your friends, and turned it into the Hunger Games. Of course it doesn't feel good. Of course it feels bad. Of course it makes you feel bad. It makes you suffer. It gives you anxiety. It gives you stress. Because it literally puts you into survival mode. This is not a metaphor. Your whole body reacts as if not getting that thing literally means death. And you know what happens when you get into survival mode? You see problems. All you see is problems. Because here's the thing. Your survival system doesn't care about your happiness. It only cares about keeping you alive. And to do that effectively, it needs to identify every possible danger and every possible pitfall so that it can have a plan to avoid those in advance so that you stay alive. So what happens when you turn a want into a need and you get into survival mode? All you focus on is problems. And that is not by choice. It's how you're wired. Your whole system is wired to keep you alive, and you push the emergency button. So you get emergency mode, and emergency mode means identify all the problems. Think constantly about everything that can go wrong. Imagine what it means for those things to go wrong so that you know how high the stakes are, so that you make sure to avoid those things going wrong. So all you focus on are all the ways this is difficult, because all you're seeing is problems. But what you focus on is what you get. So what do you get when you turn a want into a need? You get obstacles. You get setbacks. You get problems. Why? Because that is all you can see. Literally. You have left no room for your mind to think of anything else. It is only focused on seeing problems because you pushed the button and activated emergency mode. And that is why something that you wanted, and you wanted it because thinking of having it in your life made you feel good, made you have this expansive feeling. You turn that into something that gives you anxiety and feels hard and makes you feel that you're not good enough, or the world is against you, or life is difficult. It has nothing to do with the thing you want. It has nothing to do with your self-worth. It has nothing to do with how good you are or with life being hard. It is literally a matter of activating a mode that only focuses on the problems. And when you only think of problems, of course you feel anxious, of course you feel stressed, of course you constantly evaluate if you're good enough to make this happen. And of course you're going to get problems and setbacks because that's all that occupies your mind, while you think that what you're focusing on is getting that desire. You're suddenly putting a heck of a lot of pressure on yourself for no good reason, and that's how your system reacts. And you can actually observe that happening in your life, because the way I'm presenting it maybe sounds vague, but you can notice it right now in your own life. Have you ever experienced this thing when you're really good at something, unless somebody's watching? For example, you're great at basketball unless somebody you admire actually is watching you play, and suddenly you play way below average. Or, for example, something that happened to me in the past is I really love cooking and I'm great at it. I'm legitimately great at it. And whenever I have people over for dinner, I usually try the recipes in advance to make sure everything will go great. And they never turn out really good when the guests are actually here. I could have made the exact same meal 100 times in the same kitchen using the exact same ingredients and tools, and it will turn out perfect every time. But every time I have to serve it to people that are important to me because I want them to be impressed, I want them to really enjoy it, I'm not saying it's a complete failure, but it is always way below what it is when I make it for myself or for my family. Every time. That is not random. It's because the stakes are high. It's because you're telling yourself, oh, I need to get this right because this person is watching. And even if it's not conscious, you have this feeling of internal pressure, like, oh, this person is watching, so I need to get this right. It's a feeling. It's extra stress in the system. And that's how it goes wrong. And by the way, if you feel stuck and you want better results in any area of your life without having to work even harder or constantly push things to change, you can work with me one-on-one. The link is in the description below. And if you prefer courses that you can do at your own pace, you will also find the links to my courses in the description. So, the problem is never having the desire. You know how people say, To be happy, you shouldn't desire things. That never made sense to me. Desire is what moves your life forward from the moment you're born until you take your last breath. It's all a long series of desires. You desire to do something, it takes you in one direction. You desire to learn how to ride a bike, how to play sports, how to speak a foreign language. You decide you want to learn one thing, and that's the direction you take professionally. You desire to make more friends, and that's how you connect with other people. You desire to contribute to society in a specific way. It's all a series of desires our whole lives. Desire by itself is not the problem. The problem is the meaning we attach to the desire, because the more important we make that desire, the more we enter panic mode and emergency mode. And we grasp onto that desire for dear life, and that doesn't allow it to unfold naturally and makes us super miserable in all kinds of ways. The problem is that we do not allow the desire any space to breathe, We put so many conditions on it when a desire is not conditional. And what do I mean a desire is not conditional? So go back to that feeling of first having a new desire. It is this very specific thing, and it lives as it's in a bubble. It doesn't connect to other things, like you want that specific car. The moment the desire arises, it doesn't come with strings attached in any way. You just are imagining the feeling and the idea of driving that car to work, and it feels good. Full stop. But the more you start thinking about it, you start putting conditions on it, like, oh, I want this car, but I cannot afford this car right now. So I need to do something to afford that car. Oh, I bet it's difficult to get that car, because it's way above my budget. So I don't just need a promotion. I don't just need a new job. Maybe I need to start my own business in order to have a car like that. And oh my God, that feels like a lot of work. And this is putting conditions on a desire, because there is no rule that says you can only have that car if you make more money. You can only have that car if you start a business. You can only have that car if this and this and this happens. There are millions of ways something may come about in your life. But the moment you start planning, you start seeing difficulty. And you start putting conditions on that desire. You start saying to yourself that this is the only way this can happen. And not only that, this is also difficult. I don't enjoy this way, but it's the only way. So what's my solution? My solution is I have to work super, super hard to make this happen. All those are conditions that are not inherent in the desire. They do not necessarily have to go with this desire. You decide to attach all of those things on the desire and force one specific way this desire can happen, and you get tunnel vision basically. You decide that unless those conditions are met, that means you cannot have that thing, and that feels bad. And the problem is not just that it feels bad. We already covered that. The problem is that the moment you attach all those conditions to something that you want, you are eliminating all the other ways it can happen. Because you're literally saying those don't exist and become invisible to you. And that is a brain thing. That is not some weird metaphysical concept. Your brain has a part that is called a reticular activating system. And its job, to put it in simple terms, is to filter out the things that do not belong, that do not deserve your attention, and only focus your mind on the things that do belong, that do match your current beliefs and your interpretation of the world. So when you decide that I want this thing, and there is one way and one way only I can have it, and all the other ways don't exist, even if there are other ways that are immediately available to you, you're going to gloss over them, and they will never register in your mind as, oh, maybe if I did that, I could have that car right away, It just doesn't occur to you. It can be right in front of you. Other people may be able to see it and take advantage of it. To you, it will be invisible, because that part of your brain will filter it out because it doesn't belong. It doesn't match the way you're thinking. And you have installed a rule that says, this goes to spam, I don't want to see it. So you don't see the other options, they go straight to spam. And all you see is this one way and one way only. And it's like this rope bridge high up above a river in the jungle that is half falling apart, and it's the only way to cross the river. And it's a matter of survival to cross that bridge. And you don't notice the fact that there is a highway right next to you where you can just drive your car safely across the river. It's invisible to you. You just see the tiny rope bridge. And you feel the fear of crossing it, but you push yourself to bravely try to cross the bridge and face all the dangers around crossing that bridge, because it's the only way. And that is why desires and wants are not the problem. Our attachment to them and the meaning we give them are the problem, because the moment you get attached to this thing being the only way, you get the rope bridge situation and you ignore the 20 different paths that you can take that are much easier than the rope bridge because they become invisible to you. And this brings me to the other thing that happens. See, something that I notice a lot, and I've noticed it with myself, but it also happens to most of the people I know, is when you have such a want that you made into this heavy thing with a lot of edges because of making it a need, what happens is you waste an incredible amount of mental and emotional energy going back and forth with yourself about whether you're going to head towards that thing or not, basically. And what do I mean by this? Today, you're locked in. You know that you want that thing, end of story. You are not negotiating it. This is going to happen. And you're going to do everything in your power to make it happen. And you follow your plan. And the moment something doesn't go the way you want, and it doesn't have to be some big disaster, it can be a tiny thing, not reacting the way you wanted, not going the way you expected, not going the way you hoped, the moment it goes wrong, instead of just passing it by and continuing towards the thing that you want, you just stop, take a few steps back, and start this inner battle of, should I go after it? Should I stop? And it usually sounds like this. Oh, I knew it would fail. Of course it would fail. Everything fails every time. I was stupid to believe that this thing could be mine. I mean, maybe I'm just not cut out for this, you know? Maybe I'm not good enough to make it happen. Maybe I have to admit that the reason I keep failing while other people can have this is that I am not good enough. I am not worthy of having it. And I'm just embarrassing myself by trying to get it. And it's a good thing that many people don't know that I want this, or they would be laughing at my expense right now. And maybe I should just head back. Why go after it? Maybe it's just not meant to be, you know? Maybe the world is trying to tell me, life is trying to tell me that this thing is not meant for me, no matter how much I want it, and I should just quit now and do something else. That's how it sounds. And then maybe you will whine a little bit, or you will cry, you will complain to your friends, and maybe this will last a few hours or a few days or even a few weeks. And then you try again and you lock in again and you're all for this thing, and you will grind and you will hustle and you will do everything in your power to make it happen until the next tiny thing that goes wrong. And you're back to, oh, let's take a few steps back. Maybe this is not meant for me. Yeah, I'm not worthy of it. That's why it's not happening. Yeah, it will never happen actually. Here's the thing. You don't realize the incredible amounts of mental and emotional energy that are wasted on this back and forth. Wasted. We're talking oceans of energy here. If that were electricity, you would power your whole city for the year just for all this wasted energy that you spend battling yourself back and forth every time this happens. And the problem is that you haven't made a firm decision to begin with. Because when you make a firm decision, not a firm decision by turning your desire into a need and being like, oh, I will do everything in my power to make it happen because I need it to go well. No, a firm decision, like when you were a kid and you decided that, oh, other kids can ride a bicycle. My older brother can ride a bicycle. Daddy, I want to ride a bicycle too. Teach me how to do it. That kind of firm decision. It's a light decision, like, oh, it would be so cool to be able to ride a bicycle. Yeah, I'm going to learn how to ride a bicycle. End of story. That kind of firm decision. Go back to when you were learning to ride a bike as a kid. Did you go through this back and forth every time you fell? Or did you just get up and continue riding your bike? When I was a kid, I would fall. I would even hurt my knees. Maybe I would cry for a little bit. Then I would get back on my bike and try to learn how to ride a bike again. And because I was a kid, just like you were, most likely when you were trying to ride a bike for the first time, it felt like it went on forever, you know? Maybe it took me, I don't know, a month to properly ride a bike. Maybe a few weeks. I don't even know, because kids have a different perception of time. But it felt like it went on forever, because summer felt like it went on forever at that age. It didn't fly by like it does when you're an adult. It felt like forever, but I didn't care, because every kid learned how to ride a bike. I knew I would be able to ride a bike at the end. So every time I fell, it didn't make me question if I want to try again. It didn't make me feel useless. It didn't make me feel that this will never happen for me. It didn't make me embarrassed. Like, what will all the other kids say if they see me falling? Because the other kids fell too while trying to learn how to ride a bike, you know? There was no doubt in my mind that in the end, I would be able to ride a bike. No matter how many times I fell, I never doubted it. I never went into this, oh, maybe I'm just not meant to learn how to ride a bike. Maybe reality is trying to tell me this thing is not meant for me. Maybe I'm just not good enough, you know? I'm not worthy of learning how to ride a bike. Maybe that is for other kids and not for me. Maybe I should just give up and stop embarrassing myself. There was no narrative like that. It was a light-hearted goal. Oh, it would be so cool when I can ride a bike and I will impress my older brother and I will be faster than him. That was the desire. There was nothing about my worth or not being destined for me to learn to ride a bike. There was no mental and emotional energy wasted on doubting myself every time something went wrong. Oh, another day and you still can't ride a bike? You're useless. Let's sit and ponder whether we should go on with this goal, or it was a huge waste of time and we should even hide that we tried it so that people won't laugh at us. There was no such element, and I bet there wasn't one for you. But if you keep doubting every time something goes wrong, that you want this, that it's worth going after, and that you're going to have it in the end, you're just wasting energy. And if you want a more age-appropriate example, think of a car navigator. You are starting, let's say, from Los Angeles to drive to New York City, and you program your car navigation system to take you from your house in Los Angeles to New York City, a specific address. And you start driving and you get out of the city and suddenly there's a diversion because there was an accident or they're repairing the road. Do you stand there, like do you park in the middle of the road and discuss with yourself that maybe you're not meant to ever reach New York City? Maybe it was a mistake to decide to drive to New York City and people will laugh at you for doing that. Maybe that diversion means that you will never reach your destination and you should go back. And do you just decide after driving for 2 hours in the direction of New York City to just reverse and start driving back for an hour? And then after an hour, you feel better and you decide that, hey, actually, I'm going to go to New York City. I'm going to reverse again and start driving towards New York City again. And you start driving towards New York City, but 2.5 hours in, there is something else on the road and you have to follow a different path, and maybe you took a wrong turn. So you sit there in that weird little village that you drove into and you didn't even realize how it happened, and you are thinking how you're useless and you're not worthy of ever reaching New York City. And it's an impossible goal to drive to New York City. And why are you even doing this? And you should maybe turn back, and you decide to spend a week in that strange little village that you drove into because you cannot decide if it's worth it to go forward or go back home to Los Angeles. And then you decide to go back home, but then you meet another car that is driving towards New York City, and you start thinking again, oh, maybe I should give it another try after all. And you reverse and you start driving towards New York City again. Does any of that sound like normal driving behavior to you? And if you answered yes to this question, please do not ever offer to give me a lift, okay? But seriously, does that sound normal to you? Or do you just lock a destination and you keep driving, and if it takes you a different way than you expected, you just trust it to take you to New York eventually, because that's what you programmed it to do. And you don't doubt your decision to drive to New York. You make the decision once, and you just keep following the road wherever it takes you, trusting that you will end up in New York City and not, I don't know, in Vancouver or in Hawaii out of nowhere. You program the destination and you just follow the instructions. If there's a blocked exit, it will take another road to take you there. You trust it to do that. If there's road work, it will take another way to get you there. You trust it to do that. If there's heavy traffic, it will take another road to get you there. You trust it to do that. And if there's heavy traffic and you're stuck in there, okay, it's not pleasant, but it doesn't make you doubt that you will eventually reach New York City, right? Because that's your destination. So if you have that approach when it comes to something you want, when it comes to a goal that you have, you don't waste any energy fighting with yourself. But if you don't, if every time there is a blocked exit, you start doubting and thinking, maybe it's not meant for me. Maybe I'm not meant to reach New York City ever in my life. Maybe I'm unworthy of visiting New York City. You're getting nowhere. You can spend 6 months on the road, never getting anywhere. So if you're not doing this when you're driving, why would you do it for the things you want? Why would you base whether you're going to have them or not, or if you're on the right path, on what pops up in your life? Why does a setback have to mean something negative about you, or mean that you are not meant to have this thing, or that you do not deserve it, or that the world is unfair and you're never going to get it? Why would it have to mean that? Why can't it mean it's just something that looks like a setback, but my inner navigation system is locked into that destination, so I don't have to worry about this. I'm going to get there one way or another. Why do you care so much about the road, about the path to what you want, instead of just knowing that you decided to have this thing, so it's going to happen one way or another? Maybe it will take a bit longer than you expected, and that's okay. Maybe that different path that you're going to take is actually a shortcut. Who knows? Sometimes it's a shortcut. Sometimes you get to skip the heavy traffic and reach your destination much sooner than if you had remained on the main path, if that original path wasn't blocked. If you decide to just lock in the destination of what you want, like this thing is happening, I don't even have to know how exactly it's going to happen. I just know that this is what I want, and it's going to happen. And you stop allowing yourself to have this internal fight. Like, will this ever happen? Am I stupid for wanting this thing and believing that it can happen to me? If you just eliminate all that and decide that, okay, whether things go the way I planned or not, that doesn't change the destination. I'm going to get there anyway. You eliminate a lot of wasted energy and a lot of negative feelings that keep you feeling terrible, and create all those edges around the thing that you want, instead of allowing it to be this lightweight thing that makes you feel good. Because the reason you wanted it all along was because the thought of having it made you feel good. So why allow it to turn into something that actually makes you feel consistently terrible? There are other options. You don't have to turn it into that. And if you turned it into that, you can go back and reverse those steps and claim back the lightness and the expansiveness that this goal, this desire originally had. And just do away with all the extra stuff that you added, the extra importance, the turning it into a need when it is just a pleasant want. All the inner deprecating self-talk about whether you deserve it or not, whether it's meant to be or not. You can just throw all of that away. And like a child, just embrace the pure desire and lock it in as your destination and allow life to take you there without judging every single deviation from the path you had in mind and calling it a failure. Who tells you that it's a failure? Who said that? If you just decide to throw away all those extras that you don't actually need, that are making you feel bad around this thing that you want, around this goal, and decide that there are millions of ways this can happen, even though you cannot see them right now. And this is not wishful thinking. It is very egotistical to think that you know exactly what is going on in any given situation. You do not. You do not know what is going on inside of other people's minds right now. If you see, 30 people every day consistently, family members, co-workers, your boss, you have no clue what is going on in their minds and in their lives. Not for real. You only assume that you know exactly the circumstances you're in, but you don't. There are a million factors that you could never imagine because they don't fit your logic, or you're not observant enough to notice the clues of those things that are going on. Or there are no visible clues for you to notice because many people are really good at hiding exactly what they're thinking or exactly what is going on in their lives. You don't know. So why don't you just accept that I want this thing, it feels good to me when I imagine having it, and I'm going to trust that I will notice the right things if I need to notice something. I am going to do the right things if I'm needed to do something to make this happen. Or I may not even need to do anything. Maybe it will just fall in my lap. Why not? Why isn't that a possibility? Because to bring it back to the beginning, when I said there have been things in my life where I tried really, really hard and they were just not panning out. They were not, and I had exhausted seemingly every possible avenue until I gave up because I was too tired of wanting that thing. It didn't feel good anymore. I had exhausted the desire for it, and I let it go because of that. And after I let it go, within a few days, sometimes within a few hours, that thing just happened. And whenever I examine those exact times when this has happened to me, when I have worked really, really hard for something and exhausted all avenues and finally let it go, and then it happened, the common thing is that in almost all of those cases, either there was a solution right in front of me that was absolutely invisible to me because it didn't fit what I expected it to look like, or there was no obstacle to begin with. And I know this sounds crazy, but in many cases, all the obstacles and all the difficulty was completely imaginary. It was all in my own head. I had decided that this thing can only happen like that, but oh no, other people will not allow me to do this. They will stand in my way. The circumstances are not right. So what do I have to do? I have to engineer things so that I can covertly persuade people to play along so that this can happen, and then that can happen, and then this next thing can happen. And after that, that leads me to getting what I want. And I have to engineer the circumstances and influence the people, multiple people, until I get to that point where I can have the thing that I want. And after all of that failing repeatedly for a very long time, when I let it go, I got the thing by a person calling me and saying, "Hey, are you interested in this?" And that's when I realized all I had to do all along was just accept that I want this thing and maybe just directly ask a person that I thought could give it to me if they want to give it to me. And that can work with anything. Like you want a job and you think you have to jump through all those hoops to get the job. And the one thing you're not doing, because you have written it off as a possibility that could work, is to directly ask if they're hiring for the exact thing that you want. Like, do you want a person who does this? Because I'm interested. And it could be simple as that, not just for a job, but for anything. Maybe there is a very, very simple solution that you're just not seeing. Maybe there is no obstacle. Maybe there is no difficulty other than in your own mind. Like there was no difficulty in many of the things I was trying so hard for. And I'm not talking about trying for a week. Some of those situations were trying for 2 years, only to realize after giving it up completely that all I needed to do was just call a specific person that I already knew and ask them. It just never crossed my mind that this could be possible because I was seeing all those obstacles that only I was seeing. The other person didn't see any of them. And if I had asked, I would have had the thing the very first day I decided I wanted it, for example, 2 years ago, instead of going through this process. So, do you have things like that in your life? Can you potentially just imagine, just for kicks, that something that you feel is insanely difficult and has all those obstacles and you've tried every potential approach and it's not happening, that maybe doesn't need any of that? That maybe you can just let it go because there is no obstacle and it will just happen in some way you haven't even predicted, very, very fast? Because everything you want comes when you stop trying.